In bringing our discussion on who the Antichrist will be to a close, we want to go back to the prophecy of Daniel, saying in Daniel 9:27, "And he shall enter into a strong and a firm covenant with many for 1 week or 7 years. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the offering to cease for the remaining 3.5 years." We see here that a certain he will make a covenant with many for 1 week. And we have seen who this he or the other prince is that Daniel prophesied about, being the long horn and also being Alexander the Great of our time, President Obama. But then it says, according to the prophecy, that he, the same prince, will also cause the sacrifice and offering to cease for the remaining 3.5 years. So he himself will also break the covenant, and he will, in the end, in the middle of the week, be the cause of the sanctions that will be brought about against the East. Then the prophecy continues, saying, "And upon the wing or the pinnacle of abominations," that is at a certain time, when sin has reached its fullness, as we have seen taxing the limits of God's mercy, shall come one who makes desolate, until the full determined end is poured out on the desolator. Now it's very clear from prophecy that another one, this time called the one who will make desolate, or the desolator, who is the little horn, will become the Antichrist. And by him the peace will be taken away. We see here the white horse riding, and directly following the white horse we see the red horse released to take peace from the earth. Yahweh revealed to the prophet Daniel that the long horn and the short horn are two different persons through this scripture in Daniel 11 verse 23, saying, "And from the time that an alliance is made with him, he shall work deceitfully, and he shall come up unexpectedly, and shall become strong with a small amount of people." Here we see that he, the Antichrist, the one who was to rise and destroy the world, from the time that an alliance or the covenant is made with him, he's not the one making the covenant is made with him. Then he will work deceitfully. So in the first 3.5 years, behind the scenes, he will work deceitfully. But then he shall suddenly come up unexpectedly. And then he will become strong with a small amount of people through the Illuminati, and rising up from among the 5 most influential and most powerful persons in the world. We have seen that this covenant that was made with him was a nuclear covenant, and it will also be broken by the President of the United States. But at the right time, making use of trickery and deceit, deceiving those who are coming with him from South America, he will convince them that the President of the United States is the problem, turning against him, just like a scorpion that suddenly turned, although he was very friendly at a certain stage. Then he will remove him out of his way, and 4 people will rise up, and he himself will convince those 3 to veto their power, and he himself become the new dictator and tyrant of the world. The prophet Daniel prophesied in Daniel 9:25, saying, "Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem." So we see that there was going to be a commandment that was given, which we will see in the greatest detail in the next seminar called the Lord's Calendar. where we will describe and explain the times and seasons and how all these things will fulfill on a certain prophetic timetable. We see that there will be a certain point from the command was given to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. Then it says, and the people of the other prince who will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and its end will come with a flood, and even to the end there will be war and desolations that are decreed. And he shall enter into a strong and firm covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he will cause sacrifice and offering to cease for the remaining 3.5 years. And upon the wing or the pinnacle of abomination shall come one who makes desolate, until the full determined end is poured out on the desolator. Daniel asked a question to the angel, and he said, how long will these things be? And in Daniel chapter 9 it was revealed to Daniel how long these things would be. It says it would be 2,300 days. When we look at a year-day conversion, looking over a broad scale of 2,300 years, we'll see the most significant and awesome pattern, proving that Yeshua is in full control and have revealed these things to Daniel and giving us understanding of how things will be fulfilled in these last days, within the last 7 years. The command was given by Artaxerxes III to go and restore and rebuild Jerusalem. It was given in 454 BC. Now if we count from there 2,300 prophetic years, which is a period of 2,267 years, we come to a date of 1813. So 2,300 prophetic years later, from the moment the command was given until one would come who would make desolate, was a fulfillment on a greater scale, showing the timetable of God. The reason we will look into the next seminar why 2,300 prophetic years or 2,267 years is because there is a conversion factor between the Babylonian calendar and the Gregorian calendar. But what was so important? What happened in 1813? It was the fall of Napoleon Bonaparte, the Emperor of France. He came to his end in that time. So we see from the beginning until the end of Napoleon's reign, the time of the Gentiles was fulfilled over a period of 2,300 years. Not only was Napoleon Bonaparte's life pinpointed by the timing that Yeshua had given his prophet and servant Daniel, but even the time of Hitler was exactly pinpointed in the same way. In Daniel 8 verse 8 it says, the he-goat Alexander the Great will magnify himself exceedingly, and when he was young and strong, the great horn was suddenly broken. And instead of him there came up 4 notable horns, to whom the kingdom was divided, one towards each of the 4 winds of the heavens. Out of littleness and small beginnings one of them came forth, Antiochus Epiphanes, a horn whose impious and presumption and pride grew exceedingly great towards the south, towards the east, and towards the ornament, the precious blessed land of Israel. Here we see that from the time that Alexander the Great started to rise up, being the long horn, until a little horn would come, there would be another period that would be fulfilled. The time that Alexander the Great rose up was the time around 332 BC, when the Grecian Empire of Alexander the Great had its beginning, and afterwards were divided into 4 parts. But if we look at a period of 2,300 prophetic years from that time, we come to another date. 2,267 years exactly from there, we reach 1935. What happened in 1935? In 1935, it was Hitler's Third Reich that reigned from 1933 to 1945. We see that this prophecy points us back to the little horn, to Hitler, when he, who was the 10th king over a period of 2,000 years, who took his reign, fulfilling prophecy on a larger scale over 2,000 years, giving us now a shadow picture which we will see in most awesome detail in the next seminar. In Revelation 17:11, Yeshua revealed to his apostle John, saying, "As for the beast that once was, but now is no more, he himself is an eighth ruler or king or a head. But he is of the seven and belongs to them, and he will go to perdition." But also the 10 horns that you observed are 10 rulers or kings who have as yet received no royal dominion, but together they are to receive power and authority as rulers for a single hour along with the beast. These will have one common policy or opinion and purpose, and they will deliver the power and authority to the beast. Many people who have prophesied said that the world will be divided into 10 world regions, which will be ruled by 10 kings. But the prophecy does not say anything like that. It only says that there will be 10 kings, and the beast, or the 8th king, will be the ruler over these kings. And together with these kings, they will rule the world. We've already seen how the 4 permanent nations of the United Nations Security Council, which are the nuclear nations of the world, will be the 4 main kings that will control the world. But the question is, where will the other 6 come from? We know that there are also 10 non-permanent members, of which 3 of these kings will be removed in order to bring about the prophecy. Bring the prophecy to 7 more nations that remain. If we look at Egypt and Libya together as 2 different kings, we will see how 3 to 4 are actually removed. Therefore, we have 4 permanent members and 6 non-permanent members that will rule at that stage, thus giving us 10 kings. Although the world will be ruled by 10 kings, the world will be divided into many parts. World trading organizations will only knit the world together under one leader. We know that world trading organizations will have certain rules and contract agreements for those who will come into an alliance or an agreement with the groups or the trading organization. But those nations that does not want to be part of this organization or these agreements will be treated as outsiders and will even be opposed or treated as those who oppose their policies. Therefore, they will be treated as people who actually are, put it in another word, terrorists. There are, however, 10 possible world regions into which the world could be divided. If we look at the trading organizations, although they will be divided in borders, we see that the East Asian area, which is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, could be the first region. Then we have the APEC region, which is including the Pacific Ocean nations. Then we have the African Union, which of course has the whole of Africa all combined as a unit, having one ruler over that union. Then we have the South Americas, the UNASAR, better known organization who will work with South America behind the scenes to unite them. Then we have the EU, who have already been an image that was set up in order to prepare all the European nations to gather together under one banner with one monetary currency. Then we'll have the Central American Union, which will include the Panama Canal and the area of Cuba between South America and North America, known as the Central American Union. And then we have, of course, one of the largest areas, which is the Federation of the Republic of Soviet Russia, which is called Kastu, and better known as Eurasia. So although these borders might in a way divide the world into 10 parts, yet they are still just an organization that tried to unite these people. Then we have the Gulf Council, which include all the nations of the Middle East, such as Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, and those will be the Gulf Council of Nations. And then we have South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. Just as the name says, the purpose is to have the whole region work together, which will include India and could be Pakistan, Afghanistan, also included in that. And lastly, North America, not yet fully one continent all working together. Although there are 53 separate states, we know that Mexico have not been part of the United States of America. And under the Security and Prosperity Partnership of North America, they could attempt to try to unite North America under one banner with one currency. If we briefly just look at the whole world and which nations or countries are part of the trading organizations, we will see the status of world trading negotiations that are going on in the world, and those who are members. We see the green, or the dark green, actually are members, including dual representation with the European Union. Then we have the lighter green part, which is draft working party report or a factual summary that was adopted. So they are in the process of having a world trading organization, making them all work together. Then we have the yellow countries, which basically have goods and all its services that are offers submitted. So it means that all those services and all those businesses and industries in that area are starting to submit to the World Trading Organization's rules, making them unite under one banner. Then we see here the pink part, or the orange part, which we have Ethiopia and a small part of the area of Jordan, all included in there, where there's a memorandum of foreign trade regime has been submitted. Then we have the brown nations, which is also very interesting. They are the observers and the negotiations to start later, or no memorandum or FRT has been submitted. The nations that included in this area is Libya, very interesting enough, and also the nations of Iraq and Afghanistan. And then the red part, we see those nations that have frozen any procedure or negotiations in the last 3 years. And if we briefly look across the map, we only can see a few islands that have actually frozen their agreements. And then the grey part, which is only an area in the area of Tajikistan or Afghanistan, saying there's no official interaction with any World Trading Organization. So if we take a broad look at the world, we can see that the whole world are all being knit together by these negotiations of the World Trading Organizations, thus bringing them under one banner, trying to unite them with one world monetary system, with one metric system, you name it, trying to bring them together so that they might work together with one communication system, and if possible in one army that will fight against anyone else who does not want to work with them. On the 6th of April 2002, we saw another sign of what will happen in the last 3.5 years after the nuclear war has broken out, and which Yeshua had shown us, and how he will punish the nations of the United States of America and Babylon. We saw a sign of a ceasefire or a peace agreement that was brought about. We know that the manufacture of the nuclear weapons was stopped, and that is the ceasefire that Yeshua had shown us in those days. Then I heard a gate that closed on the east. This gate that closed is the sanctions that they will have against the east and will implement against the east. I saw him broke the covenant and causing the European Union and the United Nations alliance to start sanctions against the east. So as soon as the covenant is broken, we know that the sanctions will start, and that will cause the nations of the east to become isolated and cut off, and not being able to survive without the support of the European Union as well as the Americas. Then I saw a sign of a large warship that was coming up out of the east. And suddenly I felt a mighty wind like that of an atom bomb, which was dropped on the nations of the east. And I felt the earth shake like a mighty earthquake underneath me. As soon as the nations of the east will attack, we know that he will shoot out of the holster and he will destroy their power in an instant. This will cause the beginning of the nuclear war. Then I saw another sign that appeared in the east. I saw a sign of a dragon whose eye was removed. And he had taken out the eye of the dragon in the east. We know that the dragon is the nations of China. China is one of the largest nations in the east, consisting of more than 2.5 billion people staying in that area. And as soon as this mighty army of people will attack, they will suddenly be destroyed. After this, I heard the beginning of the reign of the Antichrist that was announced. As we have already seen, how the Antichrist will come up with very few and rise into his position behind the scenes, deceiving the world, instigating the East and instigating the sanctions, so that there would be a war that would be caused. On the 6th of April 2002, we saw an enormous sign of a Roman soldier having a chainsaw in his hand that appeared in the heavens. With a mighty arm, like a mighty hammer, he destroyed all the nations and all his enemies that was in his way. And I heard the sound of the destruction of the earth as he destroyed his enemies, just like a chainsaw that was suddenly started with gruesome, murderous ways to cut anything into pieces that was on his way. After this I heard the voice of a man speaking in a strange language, sounding like a Chinese or a Japanese. Then a sign of a submarine coming through the Pacific Ocean appeared in the heavens. And the Lord opened my understanding and gave me insight also into how this will be brought about. And I heard the sound of shots of a sniper gun assassinating an important person in the east. And then I saw a sign that indicated that the one who stationed himself in Israel heard something, and he suddenly turned back, and he had to return to his own land. Something causing him to retaliate. Now this was just as was prophesied by the prophet Daniel, that says, at the appointed time, God's own time, he shall return and come into the south, but it shall not be successful as with the former invasions of Egypt. For ships of Kittim or Cyprus in Roman hands shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved and discouraged and turn back and carry out his rage and his indignation against the holy covenant and God's people. And he shall do his pleasure. He shall even turn back and make common cause with those who abandon the covenant with God. Daniel 11 verse 30. We see that he will be attacked again by ships coming against him. And as soon as he realized that he is being attacked by these so-called ships of Kittim, he will suddenly, out of rage, he will retaliate. It says also that he will, those who break the covenant and those who agree with him in breaking the covenant, he will cause them to become rulers and kings with him. What is this covenant? We know that the covenant is actually the nuclear covenant. So those who will break the non-proliferation treaty, he will stand with them and he will encourage them to do this, so that he himself can annihilate those who will attempt to attack using nuclear weapons. He himself then using a nuclear weapon against them to destroy them. We see here in the vision that Yeshua shows us how the Chinese or the Japanese will come up against him. But later, we saw another sign of a submarine that goes through the Pacific Ocean that appeared in the heavens. And we'll see in the last part of this seminar how after the nations of the East have been given a powerful blow, nearly destroying them, they will attack. The Lord opened my understanding and gave me insight into how this will be brought about, and we will look at that in a moment. Then I also heard the sound of the shots of a sniper gun and assassinations that was taking place as he was removing people in strategic positions who would not bow down to his authority and power. And then I heard a sign and how he stationed himself in Israel. So he rose up in Israel and in blasphemy against the God of heaven and earth will rise up into a position saying that he is God and that there's no God who can save from his hands. it was explained to the prophet Daniel what would happen after the nuclear war has started. It says, and the people of the other prince who will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. That is the arrogant one who will come, and he will destroy Jerusalem and break down the temple. Its end will come with a flood. Even to the end there shall be war, and desolations are decreed. It says here that Yahweh had revealed to Daniel that up to the end, which is the whole rest of the period of the next 3.5 years, there will be war and desolations are decreed for all the nations of the world. It says he will enter into a strong and a firm covenant with many for 1 week or 7 years. And in the midst of the week, he, that's the arrogant one, shall cause the sacrifice and the offering to cease for the remaining 3.5 years. And upon the wing or the pinnacle of abominations shall come one who makes desolate, until the full determined end is poured out on the desolator. We see here, as soon as sin has reached its fullness, when it's reached a pinnacle, then the abomination of desolation will be set up, that which will cause the destruction of the nations of the east. Then will rise another one, who is called the desolator. Just as Revelations 9 said that a king will come up out of the bottomless pit, a demon with the name of Abaddon or Apollyon.